This slideshow will give some updates about the Office of Disability Support for the fall 2018 semester. So there are some changes to the process of requesting accommodations. Students will need to log in to ODS online services and request accommodations. This means that there is no more Google form or emailing ODS directly, and this will ensure that all requests are documented and responded to in a timely fashion. Students who have never requested accommodations before will fill out an online form also on ODS online services. This is important for faculty to know who to direct to services. If a student discloses a disability to them directly, you can absolutely send them to the Office of Disability Support. However, if a student does not disclose a disability, it is often not appropriate to direct them to the Office of Disability Support, as it could be seen as labeling the student as disabled when they are not, and thus construed as discrimination, even if our best intentions are behind it. This is the intent versus impact idea. So there are some changes to the accommodation letters as well. You will need to check your email for accommodation letters, as they will go out at the start of each semester. They will be sent via email only. There will no longer be hard copies unless a student decides they would like to print out a copy of their letter. The accommodation letters do look different than they have in the past, and I will show you the differences on a subsequent slide. Even though the accommodation letters look different, they are still valid and you are still required to provide the listed accommodations. Please be open to having a conversation with students for whom you receive accommodation letters. I instruct many students to have a conversation with their professor so that everybody is on the same page. Here are the two accommodation letters side by side. On the left-hand side is the old accommodation letters from last semester. On the right-hand side are the new accommodation letters for this coming fall semester. You'll notice that the student's name, the course they are taking with you, and the semester are all included in the subject. You'll also notice at the bottom there is information about resources for faculty to support students with disabilities. How is this going to help, and what makes this better than the way things have been done in the past? This new process will promote self-advocacy among students with disabilities, thus giving the students agency over what they do, what happens to them, and how their accommodations are implemented. This will allow students to decide whether they want to use all their accommodations for all of their classes, or if they want to use select accommodations for select classes. It also will allow them to be better prepared for the workplace, and following established directions and protocols will help guide them in what it might look like to request accommodations from employers. Self-advocacy among students also often leads to increased persistence, retention, and degree attainment, which is something that we all want to see from our students. What are some of the challenges of this new process? Implementing ODS online services has not been without its challenges. It's taken extensive time and meetings with students to get them acclimated to the new process. This is because I could go in and request all the accommodations for all of the students registered with my office in about 45 minutes. However, instead, I have been spending 30 to 45 minutes per student walking them through the process and really making sure that they understand how the process works and what their responsibilities are. How does this matter, and why is this more broadly applicable? Promoting actions that increase self-advocacy can be really frustrating, it can be time-consuming, and it can be more complicated because it forces you to rely on students to follow through. But coming back to each of these so-called challenges, each one assumes that we know better or can do better than the student regarding something that impacts their daily life. And this is why it's so important to encourage and support our students in making these decisions for themselves. So how can faculty and staff support the Office of Disability Support? Reach out and contact us when you're unsure of how to implement an accommodation. I'm always happy to have conversations with professors and really walk them through the process. Encourage conversation and check in on your students who have provided letters. Also establishing boundaries. Sometimes professors want to go above and beyond. They want to, really help students with disabilities. which is great in theory, but in practice it can really cause some challenges because then students really get used to, that above and beyond, and when it's not provided from all of their professors, it gets to be really, really, really challenging. Providing guidance, support, asking students what they need and not making assumptions, normalizing and destigmatizing disability in your classroom and in your profession. All of these are things that faculty and staff can do to support the Office of Disability Support and to support our students with disabilities. Where do we run the risk of not promoting self-advocacy? If we're listening to others over the student, if we are making assumptions about a student's abilities, needs, or desires, if we're failing to provide opportunities for students to succeed or to fail, just because a student has a disability does not mean that they must succeed. While we want them to succeed, they need to be held to the same standards as all other students and be able to complete the requirements regardless of if they receive accommodations. And forgetting that higher education is access-based and not success-based. So in K through 12, everything is success-based. You do everything you can to get the student successfully through kindergarten through 12th grade. Higher education is access-based, so we do everything that we can to ensure that our students have access to the course materials, the same facilities, and the same level of engagement as their peers. And then forgetting that students need to self-identify. We cannot request accommodations for them. We cannot identify them as a student with a disability unless they have already done so themselves. This page just gives some references on some really great information, particularly about the differences between high school and college. From UMass Boston, they do a really great job. And then some background on the disability rights movement, the self-advocacy movement, and what all of that looks like. So I'd really encourage you all to check it out. There's some really great information. Thanks again, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out.